Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Tuesday, September 14th. I wanted to share my swing trade buys from the day. Before we get started, a couple of things. One, I did try to live stream this, and I thought I could do it without necessary software that I've struggled with in the past. That was not the case, and I tried the software again, and I just couldn't get it to work. If anyone is really skilled at that and would like to comment below, I'd love to sync up with somebody to figure out what it is that I'm doing wrong. I'm usually not this tech unsavvy. But if not, then I'll just try again and I'll find another way. But we will get some live streams going on stuff like this. The other thing is, obviously, it was a pretty tough day in the market, and so it sort of like two mindsets here. One would be that it could be exposing some potential good deals, right? The other thing is if there's dips that are going to be dipping further, like we saw back in February, March, April, when folks said, I keep buying the dip and it keeps dipping further. And obviously that's very frustrating. So I made a few adjustments. I changed my sizing a little bit. I reduced it by about 20-25%. So I took about that much less in each position. And I made a few different types of selections versus what we've typically been looking at, because there weren't a lot of setups that we would normally look for on the MACD and on the daily chart and things like that. So I'll talk about some different setups that I saw that I play on other time frames, but I don't typically go hard on them in swing trade, like larger positions, because I usually get in and out of them quicker. But let's just go through and I'll sort of explain when we get there. So BCTX, I've been in and out of for a few times. What the play was here originally that I was looking at was it was caught in this range for quite some time and was looking for it to break out of the range, which it did, and then make a nice break. Now, it hasn't had what I would consider to be that secondary nice break yet, but it is considering to see pretty good volume holding steady, comparatively speaking anyways. And the MACD is getting a bit extended, but it does kind of seem that there could be something up with this one. This is what I said when I first started playing it. Previously, it was sort of stair-stepping its way up the VWAP on the 5-day, and now it's sort of stepping its way down a little bit. But I thought I would give it a chance for a potential uptick here. Now we do see on the 5-day 5-minute we have a fresh crossover here. Now whether or not that can continue is yet to be seen. And today, with our order flow, we did see a little bit of large scale outflow versus inflow, but still decent large scale inflow coming in. So I'm hoping that there's more to be had here, but I figured it was worth the risk, so we'll see. Catapult. Oh, wait, before we move on, Brysell, also the other factors I was looking at, there is a pretty large short interest here. I mean, it's over 10%, which by today's standards, I guess doesn't feel that high, but previously had, reported 28.54% of the free float on loan. And utilization at this point is getting very, very close to 100. There is a pretty high cost to borrow, so this could sort of shake some of these shorts out pretty quickly if it can show some sustained buying pressure. And also, the insiders are typically buying recently. These, oops, I always mishit on this, but this last 6 months here, we've seen $528,000 in buys from insiders and no sells. So pretty strong indication there from the insiders, at least, that they're interested in picking up the stock at these cheaper prices. Granted, it was a different price 6 months ago, but we haven't seen a lot of sells come out lately. So interested to see, what could evolve there. Catapults. So KPLT, I've been trying to see if it's going to play this gap. Now, the other thing that it has just formed, and I'll just turn this a different color so it's a little bit easier to see, is this wedge. So it's been making this series of higher lows that you see right here, and then this series of lower highs that you see right here. And that's I'm looking to see if it can break out here and then sort of finish filling this gap, which would bring it a bit over $9. And but first, if it can, like I said, break through that upper bound of this wedge, then I'd be really interested to see what could sort of evolve there. If we look at Ortex for KPLT, we also see pretty decent short interest here. Now almost 30%, so really high. Utilization also very high. So, you know, a lot of potential for short squeeze to play out here if it can continue to show some strength. Obviously, the flip side of that, it's going to put a lot of undue selling pressure on the stock itself, and that it could certainly suffer because of that. The cost to borrow, I'd like to see that get quite a bit higher, but you know, that's not up to me. But if it does, that would increase the chances in my estimation of the likelihood of being able to squeeze some of these shorts out. I'm just noticing this here, this securities class action lawsuits. Okay, I don't know what that is. That could have something to do with, you know, I think this was earnings. Yeah, that caused this sellout. Who knows? But insiders also here buying, several within the last month, several within the last 3 months, buying much more than they're selling. So that could be something interesting too. You never know, but we will see. One Life Healthcare. Let me pull the MAs back in here. So this one was a more traditional type setup that we've been looking at previously. So we see the MACD coming up and building strength as the price action was moving relatively sideways, but holding pretty well over the 20 MA for the time being. Volume seems to be holding pretty steady, pretty strong. It's going to have a battle with this 50 MA probably as it tries to make an attempted run over it, but we'll just sort of see what happens. But I like that this 20 MA is kind of curling a bit because that could help carry it up and could get a bullish crossover. The 20 MA crossing above the 50. ONEM, I can't recall if this had something interesting here as well. Yeah, they have more cells coming out, so that one was obviously not as ideal from an insider's perspective, but these are all just data points, right? No one thing, to me at least, aside maybe a pretty hefty news item, but no one thing really makes the trade for me. But that was the technical setup that we saw, but we also see here analysts showing a return potential of over 66% for the time being. So you know, if we can get that 41 price target, I'll be I'll be happy. But no, this was the more traditional setup that I saw in HIMS. Also more traditional type setup, holding over this 50 recently, 20 curling in toward the 50. So I'm hoping we can get a crossover there. Now we are getting a little bit of a die down on the MACD. So that's the one question I have of if it can hold this 50 based on that curling down a little bit. So that's what I'm sort of most cautious on this one. Otherwise, ever since sort of this time frame kicked in, we've seen volume holding up decently. You know, clearly an uptick from these days back here, and then upticked a little bit, and then has continued to uptick since then. So that could be a good sign in my estimation. I keep typing and forgetting that I have to put the cursor in there. HIMS also seeing a lot more buys and no sells. See how recently these are. So a bunch of these are just within the last month, so maybe there's something there to be seen. Also a mixed reaction from analysts, but still consensus target showing return potential over 32% for the time being. So the degree to which that factors in at all, along with the insiders, and then shorts really peeling off of this today. So low single digits on HIMS for the short interest for the time being. So that's I'm more than happy to swim in those waters. SLQT, typical setup here. Bullish crossover on the MACD, still heading in toward the baseline. We saw a little bit of dying volume, but now it's started to pick back up a little bit today. We had 4.5 million. Yesterday we had 3.5 million. Friday we had 3.5 million as well. 4.5 last Thursday. So established over the 20 MA here, as you can see, and see what it does when it gets into this fight with the 50 MA. but also showing some potential, not curling as much, but could be starting to curl there also in the near future. SLQT, if we want to take a quick look on the data side of things, select quote has a bunch of sells over the 12-month period, but if we draw that in the last month, there's been over 8 million buys. So I don't know if they had a lockup or something that expired that caused all of this selling previously. I don't know if there was bad news like a year ago or something that caused the selling, but you see, if we just compress that within 6 months, that dies down a lot, much fewer selling. And then, these buys coming in more recent time frames for sure. So interesting there. And then obviously a big return potential from the analyst side of things and on the short data, and a little bit on the higher side, a little bit closer to 10 and upticking a little bit maybe, but still nothing really going on with utilization or cost to borrow. So I'm hoping that shorts just kind of at least stay where they are and don't make any major moves in either direction. GOCO. So this one establishing over the 20 MA. Again, pretty typical setup. This uptick in volume is holding really well. And we have the MACD bullish crossover as well. And GOCO, a quick look here, and this will wrap up the video. This is the last one from the day. Big return potential if we can get some buying pressure in here. Fairly mixed, but more buys and sells over the last year. If we pull this into a tighter time frame, a lot more buys coming in. That's 9 transactions, so almost $4 million in the last month. So that's most of them, and further back than that over the course of the year. There was more, obviously, but a bunch coming in the last month, which is interesting. So shorts generally, keeping out of this. They did uptick a little bit today. Utilization is at about a quarter, and cost to borrow is nearly nil. So again, hoping that they kind of just stay away. This one has a pretty low price at the moment, just $5.63. So interested to see if it can hold the pressure over this 20 MA. It's obviously made a little bit of an uptick that could be moving toward the 50, but it has quite a bit of ways to go. It has about $1.50 or so that would probably meet something like that. But I'm interested to see what, if anything, that recent insider buying could mean for GOCO. You never know. Everything is speculative. But I took these plays, some of them in slightly different types of situations, especially BCTX, KPLT, because with the market downturn, a lot of the typical plays that I'd have that were showing bullish crossovers and price strength over MAs, they're just sort of falling apart with the broader indices themselves. And so the degree to which that continues to play out, I wanted to throw into the mix some other plays as well, and just sort of see what might kind of stem the tide until we flip the coin on where the market is headed at the moment. All right, well, I hope that you had a good trading day, and like I said, I'll keep working on something live soon. Maybe I'll do it as a podcast instead, just like an audio stream. That's a possible alternative also, but I'd like to be able to introduce the video elements. It's just such a pain to figure out the software, which looks very archaic to me. But again, if anyone has any suggestions or has any skill sets in that area, please comment below and let me know. I'd be happy to connect and pick your brain for a few minutes and get some tips. All right, folks, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.